that the move by some countries to impose a travel ban on some southern African nations after the discovery of the new Omicron Covid-19 variant is unjustified. Now, the move by countries such as the United Kingdom and the United States and the European Union countries has created chaos as flights were grounded, leaving thousands of travellers stranded. Now, in his address to the nation last night on the country's response to the coronavirus pandemic, Ramaphosa said that the decision was a clear departure from the comment to restart international travel in a safe manner to countries that was made during the G20 Summit in Rome last month. Ramaphosa says that the government will not introduce stricter measures yet, despite the reported exponential rise in the number of infections that's been caused by the new variant. And joining us now is Tshifhiwa Tshivhengwa, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the Tourism Business Council of South Africa. Tshifhiwa, good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you, and good morning to yourself and to your viewers.
So, Tshifhiwa, last night the nation held its collective breath. Were you relieved at what ultimately came out of the president's address?
No, absolutely. I think the president have, delivered a balanced speech and a balanced approach. We have been lobbying for the status quo to remain, and for a few reasons. We now have international community or countries banning their travelers from coming to South Africa, and also banning South Africans from traveling there. So the only market that we have left is the domestic market, and we need to allow that to happen to sustain the tourism industry in the short term while we work on the international markets. So it is a balanced speech, and I think the message is clear that we have tools within our toolbox to manage this pandemic, and we should use those tools.
So we know that the tourism sector is that one that simply cannot escape the negative effects of these measures, be it lockdowns or other restrictions. Have you been able to quantify the losses, however, Tshifhiwa? How much has the industry lost over the period coinciding with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, every year that we don't adequately operate the international markets, we lost around 120 billion rand. That's if we shut down the entire international market. Now, we have been able to trade a little bit, so that has offset that loss, and it's probably going to be slightly less than 120 billion rand that we have lost. But we need to remember that we had been seeing some green shoots, and we're starting to see something happening. And the airline had increased their capacity coming into South Africa from the US, from the European Union, from the UK and elsewhere. Now that has been wiped out, and from what we've seen now, around 40 billion rand, or close to, let's say between 30 and 40 billion rand, has already been wiped out from the tourism, books. So the situation is dire. Every month, every day that we don't operate, we lose a lot of money, and that equates to jobs that are going to be lost. That equates to entrepreneurs that are going to lose their livelihoods. That equates to big companies that are going to get into even more debt. So it's a dire situation, and domestic tourism is the only market that we have, that's still operating. And the president have announced yesterday that the status quo remains, and that is a sigh of relief for us at the moment.
I'll come back to mitigating strategies, but first, how has the support and assistance received from government helped the industry?
Well, there has been some support, when the pandemic hit. There was some few funding that the Department of Tourism made available for small businesses to access. That went a long way in sustaining those small businesses. Other than that, we have a government guarantee loan scheme. I don't think that was a success from our point of view. Very few companies could qualify to get that. And of course, there has been a few other non-financial, programs that have been implemented by various departments to assist, companies. That is still required as we go. But other than that, the UIF has been there for the employees. That's the money that the employees contribute to the UIF, so it's not necessarily coming from government. But there has been challenges on the UIF TS program in terms of paying on time. There are still a lot of people that still have outstanding payments. Some of them dates back as last year. So we still have challenges when it comes to the UIF TS program, but hopefully we'll get that solved, and we'll get people the money that is due to them, and they're able to feed their families. So overall, it's been tough. And those are the relief measures that we have seen, and that has been helpful to our employees and to our businesses.
And just on that point about UIF, I have a few people who are constantly writing, asking for assistance. One that comes to mind is Kobe, who is someone who works in the alcohol industry. And he's been complaining about his UIF payments. And just in terms of your discussions with government, how far are those? And as you say, you're hoping that all of these will be resolved. Some have been pending for a year or more. So just how far are you in those discussions? And is there light at the end of the tunnel for someone like Kobe?
Well, we do talk to UIF. I'm in a subcommittee that deals with that. At least once a week or every other week. There are still challenges there that needs to be solved. Some of them are system challenges. And of course, some of those challenges are, people who are trying to scam the system. So there is still light at the end of the tunnel. UIF just needs to work faster, and perhaps UIF needs to come and account publicly in the media as far as where they are and how they are moving along from that point of view. But we do meet, we do talk. It's not always pleasant. But we need to get this money to the people that is due to. And hopefully soon, everyone will get the money that's due to them, and we can close this chapter.
Tshifhiwa, in terms of mitigating strategies, so do you have any in place at this point? Because it has been really sad, the whole stop-start nature of things. And just when people think that things are starting to look up, there you have a new variant making the rounds and things shutting down again. So those mitigating strategies that the sector has in place, especially now since there's talk of a fourth wave around a time just before the festive season, how are you mitigating for all of this?
Well, the one thing that we've done right since the beginning of this pandemic is to implement the protocols that are being used along the value chain of tourism, and to put technology behind it, put training behind it, and that has worked for us. So, the entire value chain of tourism, including hospitality, we haven't been the source of the spread. Those protocols have been instrumental in ensuring that you will continue to trade in a safe way, and we continue to manage and mitigate the spread of the virus. So the protocols are there. The second part of this is that we now have vaccines, and vaccines are widely available, and we have been encouraging those that are within the value chain of tourism to get vaccinated. And we've launched various programs through our affiliate members, programs like JEP for Tourism, whereby we're encouraging everyone to be vaccinated so that we can instill confidence in both domestic and international travelers, that when they come to our establishments or attractions or anywhere where we trade, they are dealing with people that are vaccinated. So that will continue. And we also encourage South Africans to vaccinate and to make sure that we protect our own country, protect the industries like ours that are vulnerable, to make sure that we continue to trade and we get people back at work. So for us, vaccination is key. Protocols is key. We're going to continue to push those towards the festive season. We're going to be even more tighter, and we're going to make sure that we come out of this festive season without being named as the source of the spread.
And just with regard to what we've seen in other sectors and South Africa, by and large, there does still seem to be quite a bit of hesitancy when it comes to vaccination. How is it progressing within the tourism sector? And are you able to quantify how many people or what percentage of people in the sector have been vaccinated to date?
Well, there is still vaccine hesitancy, but from some of the establishments within the tourism sector, we have many of them that are sitting on 100% of their staff being vaccinated. We're encouraging those that are still sitting at lower numbers to increase the numbers, to make sure that, again, there's trust in the products that we offer. So we are moving swiftly, and we're encouraging our staff to move as fast as possible. We've got programs that are being implemented by large hotel groups to make sure that their staff are vaccinated. People are getting day off to go and get vaccinated, and we'll continue to do so. So there are those that have reached 100%. There are those that are still struggling in the early 50s in terms of the percentage. And we do hope that we push forward as festive season comes, and we're able to get into majority of our establishments, at least reaching 90%. I would like to see the industry being the first one to reach those high numbers in terms of vaccination, and that will go a long way for both domestic and international travel.
And the President, of course, making mention last night in that address to the South African public about mandatory vaccination for certain spaces and places. So in this regard, how do you respond to those in your sector who may be averse to getting vaccinated, Tshifhiwa?
Well, unless if someone has another option on the table in terms of how we deal with this pandemic, other than vaccines, that would be welcome. But I think the most important thing is that we need to make sure that, the tools that we have in our toolbox is used. And the only tool that we have is vaccination. And we will be encouraging everyone, to get there. We are not scientists, we're tourism professionals. We need to leave the issues of vaccines and medicine to those that are qualified. And we need to move on, to make sure that, we reopen. And that can only be done through vaccination.
Mm-hmm. So we saw last week the UK placing South Africa on the red list again, just about 6 weeks after we've been taken off that list. What's your reaction to that?
I think that's unjustified. The action by the UK was too quick. And what has happened, the whole domino effect of other countries coming on board and doing the same thing, I think that's unjustified. The fact that we discovered the variant doesn't mean that it originated here. And I think, again, it goes with that whole thing of looking at Africa in a negative perspective, that there can never be anything good coming from Africa. Yes, our scientists are good. They've found this new variant. We announced it to the world. We could have done a better job in terms of how we announce it and the next steps that we're going to be taking. We're a little bit too slow on that, but we managed to clarify our stance, on Friday. But what other countries have done, I know that is within their rights, but it shows us, their true views of our country. And I think that, bilaterally, those that are responsible for the relationship between ourselves and those countries needs to take note, because that is said that we get to be treated this way.
So we know the Health Department will have a media briefing later this morning, Tshifhiwa, and depending, of course, on new discoveries by scientists who had said that they are currently studying the new variant, you must be concerned that this may bring about new developments which could have more crippling effects on the tourism sector. But in terms of your final word to South Africans watching this, those who work in the sector and others who may be concerned about it, what's your word to them?
Well, I think that the more information about this variant, the Omicron, is quite important. I think that whatever it is that's happening in the labs, it needs to be communicated. The efficacy of the vaccines against this variant needs to be communicated, and even if it's preliminary results in terms of what they are seeing as scientists has to be communicated. And I think that the one thing that we as South Africans have to do is to hit the call that the president have made in terms of getting vaccinated. And of course, from the tourism value chain, we need to be the number one industry that has been vaccinated in higher numbers to make sure that we protect our livelihoods. And for South Africans, I think that, the president have said it, we need to get vaccinated. And we need to make sure that, once we are vaccinated, we practice all those health regulations that have been put out there, social distancing, masks, washing of hands, and so forth and so on. We cannot be complacent and think that the virus is gone. It's still here. It has proven that it can shake us at any time, but we need to remain resilient, and we need to make sure that we do everything in our power for ourselves, to be alive, and for the economy to go on.
Tshifhiwa, thanks so much for your time this morning. Tshifhiwa Tshivhengwa is the Chief Executive Officer at the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, and speaking to us amid concern that the new COVID-19 variant, which was brought a sharp rise in infections within a short time, may lead to stricter lockdown and further crippling effects on the tourism sector. So you heard his views there, and of course your concerns also noted. That's where we have to leave it with our SABC 2 viewers this morning. Thank you so